Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely tear up the old map for creativity. Seriously, forget all that stuff you've heard about lightning bolts of inspiration. Thanks to the really cool work of Wilma Kustal and Jonathan Binks, we're going to draw a new map of your mind, one that turns you from someone who just waits for ideas into an active explorer who goes out and finds them. Ready to get started? Let's dive in.
So let me just ask you, where do you think great ideas really come from? Is it some magical gift? A random spark that hits a lucky few? A talent you're either born with or you're not? For, centuries we've been telling ourselves this one story about creativity. And it turns out that story might be the very thing holding us back.
So before we can even begin to look at this new map, we've got to understand why the old one is just, it's wrong. We have to start by busting a huge, pervasive myth that has completely shaped how we think about innovation.
And this, right here, gets to the absolute heart of the problem. We all love that romantic idea of the singular aha moment, the flash of genius. But the reality? It's so much more interesting. Creativity is not some passive event where you sit around waiting for an apple to fall on your head. No, it's an active, continuous cycle where what you think and what you do are constantly feeding each other. Every little action you take informs your next thought, and that thought pushes you towards your next action.
Okay, so if creativity isn't a lightning strike, then what is it? We need a totally new way of seeing our own minds, a really powerful metaphor that's going to change how you think about your own thoughts. I want you to imagine your mind not as some dusty old filing cabinet, but as a vast, shifting, living landscape. This is what Kustal and Binks call the idea landscape. It's this dynamic inner world where your thoughts aren't just sitting there in storage, they're constantly forming, bubbling up into your awareness, sinking back down, and making all these wild new connections.
And think of it like this. The thoughts you're having right now, the ones at the front of your mind, they're like mountain peaks, high up, easy to see. But just below the surface, down in the valleys, there are countless other ideas, memories, and connections just waiting for the right nudge to emerge into the light. The most creative people, they're not always just smarter, they're just better explorers of this inner terrain.
And what even is an idea in this landscape? Well, it is definitely not just one single thing. Let's just take a simple word like green. In your idea landscape, green is a whole cluster of connected stuff. It's a concept, right? Color, nature, plants. It's also an emotion. Think freshness or envy. It's a perception, like a very specific shade of lime green versus forest green. And it's even a motivation. It's the go signal at a traffic light. See? Every idea is this rich network, and creativity is all about discovering the paths between them.
All right, so every good explorer needs a toolkit. If your mind is a giant landscape, how in the world are you supposed to get around in there? This next part is all about giving you two absolutely essential tools for your journey. The first tool is called detail stepping. And honestly, you can think of it like your own personal mental zoom lens. It's the skill of being able to move smoothly between the huge, big-picture view of a problem, the why, and then zooming all the way into the tiniest, most concrete details, the how. The best innovators don't just hang out at one level. They're constantly stepping up and down. And here's a perfect example of this in action. When researchers watched expert computer programmers, they saw that they didn't just think from the top down. They were constantly jumping back and forth, from the grand, abstract architecture of the entire system all the way down to the nitty-gritty of one single line of code, and then right back up again. That constant movement is what lets them solve incredibly complex problems.
Okay, our second tool is control dialing. I want you to literally imagine you have a dial in your mind that changes your thinking style. All the way on one side, you've got intense, deliberate focus, and on the other end, you've got loose, spontaneous, almost daydreamy kind of thought. The secret is knowing when to turn that dial.
So control dialing lets you switch between these two crucial modes. Sometimes you need to crank that dial up for a deliberate search, where you're methodically, logically testing options. But other times, you need to dial it way back and just let go, allowing for spontaneous insight. That's when those amazing solutions just seem to pop into your head out of nowhere. A true innovator knows how to use both. You need the deliberate search to pave the road, but you need the spontaneous insight to discover those hidden shortcuts.
Now, we get to what might be the most radical idea of all. The explorer. That's you. In this idea landscape, you're not just a passive observer. The things you actually do in the real world, your actions, they actively shape and change the landscape itself.
This quote from the inventor, Tim Hunkin, just says it all, doesn't it? Ideas aren't just born inside your head. They are forged in the physical act of making things. You can sit and think about a problem all day long, but it's only when you start building, sketching, and making prototypes that you stumble upon the real problems and the real opportunities that pure thought could never, ever show you.
And this leads us to the engine that drives all of this exploration, the making-finding cycle. It's a simple idea, but it's incredibly powerful. You make something tangible, a little sketch, a model, a rough draft, whatever. Then, just by messing with that real thing, you find something new, an unexpected issue, a surprising connection, a whole new path forward.
So here's how you put that loop into practice. First, you make. Get the idea out of your head and into the world. I don't care how messy it is. That act of making allows you to find. You'll discover things you couldn't possibly have predicted. From there, you refine your idea based on what you just learned, and then the most critical part, repeat. You just keep going through the cycle. This isn't a straight line. It's a spiral where real innovation happens.
All right, let's bring it all home. We've busted the myth, we've mapped out the landscape, and we've gathered our tools. Now let's put it all together into a real expedition plan that you can use to become a better mental explorer, starting, right now.
So here's your plan. It's built on 3 key ideas. First, reframe your mind. It's not a vault, it's a living, breathing landscape. Second, get out there and navigate it with your tools. Use detail stepping to zoom in and out, and control dialing to switch up your thinking style. And finally, and this is the big one, shape that landscape through action. Remember, making things doesn't just express your ideas, it creates them.
So I'll leave you with this final question. You don't need permission to be creative. You don't need to wait for a lightning bolt. You just need to start exploring. So what's one small thing you can make or do right now? A quick sketch, a single paragraph, a little prototype to start exploring your own idea landscape today.